Good evening to you. Welcome again, Women in Crime, Professor Jen. Lovely to have you here this evening, as always. Before we begin our lecturecast tonight, I just want to say a special thank you to our caption people, or the persons that have been transcribing all of our work, as they're very important people in our lives. And certainly we couldn't have the benefit of these lecturecasts unless we had them in our lives. So thank you to whoever it is that's doing the work. Good evening to you, students. We had a vibrant week this week in discussion and dialogue in our online chat. I know we had numerous assignments. In fact, even yesterday, Monday, I posted several things that I'm going to be looking for from you. Next week, I'm also going to be looking for other assignments as well, such as literary review, etc. And I'll give some more directions on how we're going to do that. Tonight I want to give you a couple little overviews of some things that came up in the reading and in our chat as well that I think would give you a broader understanding of what we're talking about, especially in women in crime, methamphetamine use, drug use, prostitution, and just some really weird stories I have come across in my case management. If I look down again, it's not because I'm not trying to do business, it's just that I'm looking at my notes. I once had a case, we'll just call her Susan, just as a point of reference, who I knew was clearly a drug user. And when I was doing case management at my office on Dewey and Driving Park, I dealt with her frequently. And in fact, the funny thing about this Susan was, just to give you a little bit of a case history there, she happened to have been at the time 27 when she first became my client. And the reason she became my client is because she received entry to care. I'll repeat that again. Entry to care through jail and incarceration. And then she got assigned to me because she was picked up for prostitution. And the thing that was so interesting about Susan at 27 years old is she happened to have been a mother of 3 children. She was from here in Western New York, somewhere around Medina or Holly, something like this. And at one time, which I was able to verify, she happened to have been a nurse. Interestingly, Susan had gotten very wrapped up in narcotic use, of course, Vicodin, and I had a suspicion that she had gotten them from her work site. Was never formally charged for taking drugs from her work site. But I suspected that that's how this began, because unfortunately that's what happens sometimes. People fall into occupations and they get tested with their own weakness, and then they take things that they clearly shouldn't be taking. Anyway, she came to me and she came to me as a client, and I worked with her diligently while she was incarcerated. So most people who are incarcerated usually aren't high. One day she came into my office, and I could see she was presenting what we call visceral, meaning signs and symptoms of what we can see. Visceral signs of somebody who is in distress. And when we spoke, historically, she'd always look me in the eye. She would give me a kiss on the cheek. Sometimes she would tell me something. And she'd say, "Biggie J, can I hold your hand while I tell you something that's painful," etc. But this time there was something a little odd about Susan's whole composure, or what we call in the business her carriage, CARRIAGE, which is a dance term as well, meaning it's how one presents oneself, how one holds oneself. So I saw that she was having some difficulties again in these visceral signs of distress, and how she was holding her carriage. Plus, she wasn't making her usual eye contact with me, and I got no kiss. And she proceeded to seem very agitated and tell me about things that were bothering her, and so on and so forth. And then in the middle of this very peculiar conversation, she just sort of stopped in the middle of her conversation. And it didn't feel like a natural pause. in the conversation. And I said to her, Susan, are you okay? And she looked at me and said nothing. Really nothing. Like if I sat here for the next 10 seconds, which I'm happy to do for you, and say really nothing, if I may. It'll be a long 10 seconds. We'll start now. So you can imagine how creeped out I am that this person is sitting there for 10 seconds at least, not saying a word to me. And then all of a sudden she gets this really weird look on her face and she says, Biggie J? I said, yes. And this is what she said to me. She said, I hear voices in my head, and I think it's from the methamphetamine use, or the crack use, or the marijuana, or the drinking for today, or a combination of all four. But the voices are telling me to hurt you, and I don't want to do that because I love you. But I need you to get the fuck away from me, is what she said to me. Now here I'm sitting in an office with this person that's coming there to get help. I'd like to help her. And this is what I'm getting from this person, a clear and direct threat. I calmly took my handbag because it had my keys in it, and I literally left her sitting in my office, and I walked out the door, at which time I walked calmly to my car, called 911, and sat with the car door locked. Where was Susan? Sitting in my office in a puddle of tears, talking to herself and back to the voices. "911 came along with an ambulance and took Susan away to the hospital. As they put her on the stretcher, she said to me, 'Biggie J?' I said, 'Yes.' She said, 'Can you ever forgive me?' I said, 'Of course I can.' I said, 'But you scared me, so I had to leave you.' And she said to me, 'I was hoping you would leave because I wanted to hurt you, but I really didn't. But the drugs told me to.' I had another client once, we'll call her Deborah, and Deborah, as I was helping her, stole literally out of my handbag while we were on a call. I came to basically deal with her in the street as she was having some severe issues with panic and anxiety. Prostitute, drug addict. I turned my back for 1 second and she put her hands in my handbag and took from me. Later, she'd come to my office several weeks with $3 in her hand. And she said, 'Biggie J?' I said, 'You know what? I know.' She said, 'I want you to have the money back.' I said, 'I appreciate that.' She said, 'You know, it's the drugs, and I need the drugs.' She said, 'I'll steal from anybody. It's not just that it's you. I'll take from anyone.' I said, 'I know.' Sometimes when women commit crimes, pardon me, I have a little sore throat. When women commit crimes, it's usually of one of two nature. It's either drug-oriented or it's love-oriented. I'll repeat. It's either drug-oriented or love-oriented. Often, women do things because they think they're in love with either another woman or another man. More often than not, they're presenting symptoms of criminology and crime because why? Their biggest pimp is a crack pipe. I had another client that was very humorous. Huge heroin addict. methamphetamine, crack cocaine, really anything she could get her hands on. If she could drink up Benadryl and do shots with Benadryl, she would have. She was very funny sometimes. Actually, I preferred her high to straight because when she was straight, she was very grumpy. But interestingly, she would tell me that in order for her to be able to survive, she would often have to self-medicate because whatever it was that was going on with her emotionally, which I found out later, she was the victim of numerous crimes from the time of childhood to adulthood.